Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
5 years have passed since the day I lost my son in the quiet corridors of the maternity hospital. His departure left a void in my heart that time has failed to heal. Grief became my shadow, a constant reminder of what might have been. Despite the ache, I found solace in bringing joy to others. Every week I visit the orphanage, where laughter and innocence reign amidst the children's playful chaos. I always looked forward to my visits to the Sunnyvale orphanage. The children's bright smiles and infectious laughter were like a balm to my soul, especially after long, grueling days at the hospital. As a nurse, I saw too much suffering and pain, and these visits reminded me of the simple joys in life. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I first saw him. The wind rustled the leaves, scattering them like confetti across the orphanage's playground. I had brought a box of toys and clothes, my usual offering, and the children had gathered around, eager to see what treasures lay inside. "Miss Jody, Miss Jody." They chorused, their voices high and excited. I laughed, the sound of their joy infectious, as I handed out the gifts. In the midst of the cheerful chaos, my eyes fell on a little boy standing slightly apart from the others. He had striking blue eyes and a head of tousled black hair that looked as if it had never met a comb. His expression was one of quiet curiosity, and as our gazes met, I felt a jolt of recognition. "Hey there," I said, walking over to him. "What's your name?" "Christian," he replied, his voice soft but steady. "Nice to meet you, Christian. I'm Jody." He smiled then, and my heart skipped a beat. That smile, with its mischievous tilt and the twinkle in his eyes, it was so familiar. It was Michael's smile. I felt a strange mixture of warmth and unease settle in my chest. "Would you like a toy, Christian?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He nodded eagerly, and I handed him a small toy car. As he reached out to take it, his sleeve slipped down, revealing a small crescent-shaped birthmark on his right wrist. I froze, staring at it. Michael had an identical birthmark in the same spot. "Thank you," Christian said, his eyes bright with happiness as he ran off to join the other children. I watched him go, my mind racing. This couldn't be a coincidence. The resemblance was too strong, and the birthmark was too unique. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach as I turned to leave the orphanage. That evening, as I sat in our cozy living room, the image of Christian kept flashing in my mind. Michael was in his office, working late as usual. I wanted to talk to him about it, but I didn't know how to begin. How do you tell your husband that a child in an orphanage looks exactly like him? The next day, I returned to the orphanage, my curiosity driving me. I spent more time with Christian, playing games and talking with him. The more I observed, the more certain I became. He had Michael's mannerisms, the same way of tilting his head when he was curious, the same infectious laugh. I couldn't ignore it any longer. That evening, after Michael had come home and we were having dinner, I decided to bring it up. "Michael," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "I met a boy at the orphanage today. His name is Christian, and he looks a lot like you." Michael looked up from his plate, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean, a lot like me?" "He has your eyes, your smile, and even your birthmark," I said, my words coming out in a rush. Michael laughed, but there was an edge of discomfort in it. "Come on, Jody. There are plenty of people with blue eyes and black hair. It's not just that," I insisted. "The birthmark is exactly the same. You need to see him." Michael sighed and set down his fork. "Okay, I'll come with you to the orphanage. But Jody, you're probably just seeing things." The next day, we went to the orphanage together. When Michael saw Christian, I could see the color drain from his face. He tried to brush it off, but I knew he was as shocked as I was. The resemblance was undeniable. As we drove home in silence, the tension between us was palpable. That night, as we lay in bed, I finally voiced my deepest fear. "Michael, did you ever cheat on me?" He turned to face me, his expression one of hurt and confusion. "Jody, how could you even ask that? I would never do that to you." "Then how do you explain Christian?" I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. Michael didn't have an answer. The following days were filled with awkward silences and avoided conversations. I couldn't let it go. I needed to know the truth, and there was only one way to find out. A DNA test. Michael reluctantly agreed. We arranged for a sample from Christian to be tested against Michael's. The wait for the results was agonizing. When the day finally came, I was the one who picked up the envelope from the lab. My hands trembled as I opened it. The words stared back at me, cold and unfeeling. Michael was Christian's biological father. My world shattered. I felt betrayed, hurt, and lost. I confronted Michael with the results, and his denial only made it worse. How could he lie to my face? "I want a divorce," I said, my voice breaking. "Jody, please. I swear I didn't cheat. There has to be another explanation," Michael pleaded, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of my heart breaking. I moved into the guest bedroom that night, the distance between us both physical and emotional. I couldn't look at him without feeling a wave of anger and betrayal. The man I had loved and trusted had a child with someone else. How could I ever forgive that? Days turned into weeks, and the tension between us only grew. Michael continued to insist on his innocence, but I couldn't bring myself to believe him. The DNA test was irrefutable, and every time I thought of Christian, my heart ached. One evening, I found myself back at the orphanage. I watched Christian playing with the other children, his laughter ringing through the air. He was such a happy, vibrant child. My anger and confusion melted away, replaced by a deep sense of sadness. No matter what had happened, he was an innocent in all this. I had to find a way to move forward, for Christian's sake and for my own. The days following my decision to file for divorce were a blur. I moved out of the master bedroom and into the guest room, the physical separation reflecting the emotional chasm that had formed between Michael and me. The weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air, an almost tangible presence that neither of us could ignore. Despite the mounting evidence, Michael continued to protest his innocence. His insistence only fueled my anger and confusion. How could he deny something so blatantly obvious? The DNA test was irrefutable, yet he clung to his story. One evening, as I sat on the edge of the guest bed, lost in thought, there was a soft knock on the door. I looked up to see Michael standing there, his face etched with a mix of desperation and determination. "Jody, can we talk?" he asked quietly. I hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "I know you don't believe me, but I swear on everything I hold dear that I never cheated on you. There's something more to this, and I need to find out what it is." "Michael, the DNA test." "I know," he interrupted gently, "but I can't just accept it. Not without knowing how it happened. Will you give me a chance to prove it to you?" I studied his face, searching for any sign of deceit. Instead, I saw only pain and sincerity. Against my better judgment, I found myself nodding. "All right. But if you can't find an explanation, I'm done. I can't live like this." He nodded, relief washing over his features. "Thank you, Jody. I promise I'll get to the bottom of this." Michael wasted no time. He contacted the hospital where Christian was born, determined to uncover any discrepancies or mistakes. Days turned into weeks as he pored over records, interviewed staff, and sought any clue that could explain the unexplainable. One afternoon, I returned home from work to find Michael sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of documents spread out before him. His eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep, but there was a spark of hope in them that I hadn't seen in a long time. "Jody, I think I've found something," he said, motioning for me to sit down. "What is it?" I asked, my curiosity piqued despite myself. He handed me a file. "These are the records from the hospital. It turns out that another boy was born at the same time as our son. Both children had the same mole in the same place. And at this time there was confusion in the hospital due to power outages." I felt a flicker of hope. "Are you saying there was a mix-up?" "Possibly," Michael replied, "but we need to be sure. I want to do another DNA test, this time with both you and me. If Christian is our biological child, it will show." My heart pounded in my chest. "Okay, let's do it." The process was agonizingly slow. We collected the necessary samples and sent them off to the lab. The wait for the results felt like an eternity. I barely slept, my mind racing with the possibilities. What if Michael was right? What if there had been a mistake? Finally, the day arrived. The envelope from the lab sat on the kitchen table, a harbinger of truth. Michael and I stood side by side, the tension between us palpable. "Do you want to open it, or should I?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll do it, I said, my hands trembling as I picked up the envelope. I tore it open and unfolded the paper inside, my eyes scanning the lines of text. My breath caught in my throat. Oh my God, I whispered, my voice breaking. Michael, look. He leaned over my shoulder, his eyes widening as he read the results. Christian is our son, he breathed. He's our biological child. Tears streamed down my face as the reality of the situation sank in. But how? How did this happen? Michael pulled me into his arms, his own tears mingling with mine. There must have been a mix-up at the hospital. The babies were switched. We held each other for what felt like hours, the weight of the revelation crashing over us. The anger and betrayal that had consumed me for so long began to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of relief and gratitude. Our son, the child we had lost, had been found. The next day, we visited the orphanage together. Christian was playing in the yard when we arrived, his laughter ringing through the air. As he saw us, he ran over, his face lighting up with a smile. Hi, Miss Jody. Hi, Mr. Michael. He called, waving enthusiastically. I knelt down and pulled him into a hug, my heart swelling with love. Hi, sweetheart. We have something important to tell you. Christian looked up at me with wide eyes. What is it? Michael joined us, placing a gentle hand on Christian's shoulder. Christian, we found out that you're our son. You belong with us. Christian's eyes filled with tears, and he hugged us both tightly. I always hoped I'd have a family, he whispered. You do now, I said, my voice choked with emotion. You have us. As we left the orphanage that day, Christian's hand firmly clasped in ours, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't known in months. Our family was finally complete, and despite the pain and confusion, love had prevailed. We spent the evening at home, introducing Christian to his new room and sharing stories about our lives. As we sat together, the warmth and love that filled the house felt like a balm to my soul. The nightmare was over and a new chapter had begun. Later that night, as I tucked Christian into bed, he looked up at me with a sleepy smile. Will you stay with me until I fall asleep? He asked. Of course, I replied, sitting down beside him and holding his hand. I'll always be here for you. As I watched him drift off to sleep, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The initial relief of discovering Christian was our son brought a temporary calm to our lives. We were united in our quest for answers, and our shared mission to understand the hospital mix-up fortified our bond. However, I still felt an undercurrent of tension, a nagging feeling that something significant had yet to be revealed. One morning, Michael and I decided to visit the hospital together. The hospital administrator, Ms. Thompson, greeted us with a formal yet sympathetic demeanor. Her office was sterile, with walls adorned with framed certificates and a large mahogany desk that created a barrier between her and the world outside. Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher, I understand the gravity of your situation, and I assure you we are taking this matter very seriously. Ms. Thompson began, folding her hands on the desk. We have initiated a thorough investigation into the events surrounding Christian's birth. Thank you, Ms. Thompson, Michael replied. We need to know how this could have happened. Our lives have been turned upside down. Ms. Thompson nodded. We are reviewing all records and interviewing staff who were on duty at the time. It will take some time, but we are committed to finding the truth. As we left the hospital, a sense of impatience gnawed at me. Waiting for answers felt unbearable. I turned to Michael. I can't just sit around and wait. We need to do something. Michael squeezed my hand. I agree. Let's dig deeper ourselves. Determined to find out more, Michael and I started our own investigation. We contacted former hospital staff, hoping to uncover any details that might have been overlooked. One evening, we received a call from Nurse Emily, who had worked in the maternity ward during Christian's birth. I remember that night very well, Emily said, her voice tinged with regret. There was a lot of confusion and chaos. We were understaffed, and a power outage caused a lot of disruption. Can you tell us more about the mix-up? I asked, my heart pounding. There were 2 boys born around the same time, both with similar birthmarks. It's possible that in the confusion, they were switched. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Hearing this, we knew we were on the right track, but it wasn't enough. We needed solid proof. Meanwhile, our lives at home were gradually adjusting. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Christian looked at me with curious eyes. Mom, Dad, Why did I have to stay at the orphanage for so long? He asked. Michael and I exchanged a glance, and I took a deep breath. Sweetheart, there was a mistake at the hospital when you were born. But now we're fixing it, and you're with us where you belong. Christian nodded thoughtfully. But why did my first parents leave me? I looked at Michael, and he nodded, signaling it was time to tell Christian the whole truth. Christian, I began gently, your first parents were wonderful people who loved you very much. They had an accident when you were very young, and they couldn't take care of you anymore. That's why you went to the orphanage. Christian's eyes widened. So they didn't leave me because they didn't want me? No, not at all, Michael said, his voice full of reassurance. They wanted you very much. It was just a terrible accident. Christian nodded thoughtfully. I'm just glad we're together now. Days turned into weeks, and just as our patience was wearing thin, we received a call from Ms. Thompson. She sounded urgent. Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher, we have found something significant. Can you come to the hospital tomorrow? The next morning, we sat in Ms. Thompson's office, anticipation and anxiety swirling within us. She handed us a file, her expression serious. We found additional records and an anomaly in the documentation. There were 2 boys born on the same night, both with similar birthmarks. Ms. Thompson began, her voice steady. One of the boys, who was mistakenly believed to be your son, did not survive. He passed away 2 hours after birth. Michael and I gasped simultaneously. I could feel my heart racing. What about the other boy? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Miss Thompson took a deep breath. The other boy, who is Christian, was given to the other couple who believed he was their son. After their tragic accident, Christian ended up in the orphanage. The room fell silent as we absorbed the gravity of the situation. Michael finally broke the silence. So our son was mistakenly given to another family, and the child we mourned was not ours? Yes, Miss Thompson confirmed. I am deeply sorry for the pain this has caused. We have initiated new protocols to ensure this never happens again. The weight of her words hung in the air. It was almost too much to comprehend. The son we thought we lost had been with another family all along, and through a series of tragic events, he had found his way back to us. As time passed, our lives began to settle into a new normal. Christian thrived in his new environment, and the love we shared as a family deepened. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Michael looked at me with a smile. We've been through so much, Jody, but I believe it's made us stronger. I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. It has. And no matter what challenges come our way, I know we can face them together. Christian looked at us both, his eyes shining with happiness. I'm just glad I have a family who loves me. We pulled him into a group hug, the warmth of our embrace a testament to the strength of our bond.